Lifestyle, child of God. Shout out to everybody. How are you? Peace to you. And, I wish you well. In a serious situation going on in LA, California, as we see and have been seeing on the news here, um, the chaos from the rioting and the ICE raids and everything that's going on in LA right now. The Latino community has been standing up to what they feel is um, authoritarianism and oppression and discrimination and etc. And I come with solutions. You know, when you really in leadership and when you have real leaders around you, real leaders will tell you, you have problem, come with solutions, right? There's a problem, come with a solution. Um, So as you know, these raids are going crazy right now. People are in the streets, heavy in the streets. They brought out, the Trump sent out the National Guard against Galvin Newsom's request as the governor. Galvin is, in response to Trump sending the National Guard, Galvin is going to be suing Trump. And now the latest is that Trump is sending in the Marines, right? Because it's too chaotic, supposedly, Um, and we got to keep in mind that a lot of the Latino community voted for Trump. You know what I mean? And Trump said he was going to do certain things, and he's carrying out those things that he said he was going to do, whether you agree with him or not, right or wrong. But the Latino community, again, a portion of the Latino community voted for Trump, right? A portion of the Latino community voted for Trump. And this is the outcomes, right? Part of the outcomes of, hello, everybody, how y'all doing? This is a part of the outcomes of voting for Trump. Now, what I want the Latino community to know, those that didn't work hard for their citizenship and didn't work hard to gain their nationalization in America, obviously we all know that hundreds of thousands of people came in to America, right? Through the Biden administration, right? And across the border. And not just people from the Latin Americas, it was people from all over the world that were coming through the border secretly, right? But here's my solution. Now, my solution is this: relocate those folks to another state in America. We have so much land that is being unused in America. And as I was doing research in reference to me going to law school, right, I found out that there are certain rural areas in the United States, in the Midwest and on the West Coast. These rural areas, right, they offer financial opportunities and other types of opportunities just to bring people into those rural areas, right? Because there's really nobody that lives there, right? They have very, very low population. And so what we need to do is relocate folks instead of deporting them, right? Instead of alienating them, we can relocate those folks to places in the United States that have a lot of room and need more infrastructure, right? Which creates jobs. That needing the need for infrastructure creates jobs to renew the infrastructure in those areas, right? And we have plenty of states in the Midwest and on the West Coast, in the northern West Coast and the northern Midwest, that the population is minuscule. And what we could do is we could take those the immigrants, the migrants, the people that ICE is corralling. We could take those folks and establish them in places in the United States that need infrastructure, that need population, right? There's places in the United States that need population. And what we do is we allow those folks to build those areas, right, within the United States. Being that there's such a need for population, we'll let those folks build them, put those folks in a population where, in an area where they're not affecting other nationalities, and they're not affecting other people's jobs, or we're all competing over, we're all jumping over each other, crabs in a bucket, right? We're all jumping over each other for the same opportunities, when the opportunities are abundant and vast, right? But it's about relocation to places where the need is needed, right? And so what we do is we put those folks in places that are needed in the United States, not major metropolitan cities that are already full of people, right? And full of people who are working, like everyday citizens are working towards goals and looking for benefits and looking for help and all those things, right? So we put those folks in places like North and South Dakota, right? You want to be in America? All right, cool. You don't have your citizenship, you want to work hard and all that stuff. All right, great. Well, we're gonna put you here in New Mexico. We're gonna put you here in Oregon. We're gonna put you here in Washington State. We're gonna put you here in Wyoming. We're gonna put you here in different states that actually need population growth, right? We're gonna put you in those places and allow you to build your way to naturalization and to citizenship. While doing that, we'll be utilizing the manpower to reestablish infrastructure, to build, right? There could be another hot city, right? LA is a hot city. New York is a hot city. Chicago, Miami, etc. These are big metropolitan cities, but nothing's stopping us from building a new metropolitan city in a different area, right? That will bring in tourism, that will bring in domestic travel from, and bring in new culture and experiences, right? So let's just relocate those people to areas that need those people, right? And if you look into it, there's a lot of states that are offering opportunities to folks in America, that because their populations are so low, right? In some of these states, they have to recruit lawyers, right? They're recruiting lawyers. Some of these states will pay your student debt. They will finance you. They will house you just so that you can spend or you can spend time in their state helping to build that state, right? And this is something that we need to be utilizing. This is something, I don't know what's going on in the chat. I'm not really paying attention to it, but this is something that we need to be utilizing in order to stop the chaos, right? We don't have to have chaos. This is, in my opinion, strategically planned and prompted. People have done certain things to push these agendas, right? And instead of alienating them, instead of running around trying to capture people, there's Spanish folks across the nation right now wearing masks, right? And I'm not talking about no masks just like COVID masks. I'm talking about masks like ski masks, right? So that people can't see their face, and like the gentleman in the picture, right? Because they don't want to be identified. And instead of alienating these folks, we need to relocate them to places in the United States that have a need for a new population, to build the infrastructure, to build a new culture, new financial basis. That's what we should be doing. And we should be having leadership that can solve these things and create solutions, right? And that's why I'm presenting you with the solution. Now, I'm not saying the solution is perfect, right? But it's a solution, and it will get rid of the violence and the chaos, more or less, more immediate. I'm not saying it's going to go away right away, but it's more immediate, right? Especially when folks get to know, like, look, you don't got to go back to the country that you don't want to go to, right? That you don't want to be deported to, because you left those countries to come here, right? You want to be American. You want to be in the ambiance of America. I get it. But we're going to need you to help us build certain states and certain cities in America that need the help, that need the population, that need the infrastructure. How about that as a deal, right? Instead of us having folks register or contact ICE or whatever so that we can eventually deport them, right? But that's what we should be doing now. When it comes to the people that are coming over here or that have come over here that have violent criminal backgrounds and just crazy criminal backgrounds and stuff like that, these people can be rehabilitated. I do think that we should bring them in to assess where they're at in their life and the things that they've done so that we can help rehabilitate them and provide a level of protection to good citizens out there that are worried about, some of these folks. We got to provide a level of protection for them, right? So people can be rehabilitated. Remember, in one of my other lives, I told you that locking people up is just like sending somebody to their room indefinitely. It doesn't rehabilitate them. It doesn't restructure their mindset or their heart posture. And so we got to start figuring out ways that can help build people, because no man should be left behind. You know what I mean? Nobody should be left behind. We got to start rehabilitating people, and we got to start putting people in places where they can actually grow, but that growth also benefits the entire nation. You understand what I'm saying? And some people might not agree with my solution, and that's fine. But it's a solution, right? It's better than, I was just watching a report on this, and one of the reporters got struck with a rubber bullet, whether it be intentional or non-intentional. And you're seeing cop cars get vandalized. You're seeing Teslas getting burnt down and vandalized and stuff like that. So in order to prevent the violence, let's give people an opportunity to build America, right? Let's build America like Trump is saying. He wants to build America. He wants to bring business and industry and da, right? Well, how you do some of that with the current populations of migrants that we got over here is we relocate them to areas that they need to go to, right? For us to win-win situation type thing, right? This is a win for them. They get to stay in America. They get to work on their naturalization and to become citizens. But also, we get the benefit in America from their hard work, right? And we get the benefit in America from them helping us build industry and infrastructure, right? And this is a solution, right? Instead of violence, right? And I think that a lot of the Latinos in America, the migrants, I think that they would be compromised. They would compromise for that solution. I think that they would be in agreement for that solution, right? Because what happened during the Biden administration is that a lot of these folks came over here through us letting them over here, and then we just sent them to major cities, right? Again, we sent them to all these popular cities to destabilize these cities. That's really what happened, all right? And we funded the destabilization. I say we because it was American dollars that got spent through the leadership, the administrations that were in power. We funded the destabilization of those cities, and we've seen the outcome of what happened in the destabilization of those cities, right? It was hard on the governors of those states. It was hard on the mayors of those cities, right? Difficult, you know what I mean? And at some point, you got to have empathy, sympathy, and compassion for anybody, right? That's struggling or that's just trying to make it, right? So, this is part of that compassion. This is part of that empathy and sympathy, right? We just put them in places where nobody is. Right? There's nobody there in certain places in America. And we create a structure where it can be monitored, you know what I mean? So that the chaos doesn't pursue, right? In the new area that we reestablish them in, right? We don't want gangs and a lot of drug infestation in those new areas, right? As I look up some of these states that are offering opportunities, just trying to bring people into those states, a lot of those states do have in certain areas, particular crime and drug use and homelessness, right? But those things can be solved as well. And part of that solution is we need to build America. We need to reestablish our infrastructure. We need to reorganize things in America to make America great again, right? And this is a part of that solution. You utilize what you got, right? When you become a leader, when you lead, you utilize what you have, especially if money is tight. You know, if expense is king and revenue is not at the top of the you know, if revenue is not coming in, you want to utilize what you have to bring revenue back up and to decrease your expenses, right? And we have some serious issues with our infrastructure in America. And, you know, for one, we could be utilizing the immigrants or the migrants to establish vertical farming, which is something that is growing in the mindsets of Americans and in the mindsets of scientists. It's a growing phenomenon. Like, not that it's a phenomenon, but it's a growing thing where we need to reestablish how we farm, right? We need to reestablish or rethink, right, how we're farming to compensate for the large number of population that we have. We need to increase our knowledge base and rethink on how we do things, right? Because if we can do things better, then we will definitely win. You know, if we rethink on how we're doing things, right? If we rethink on how we're structuring things, we can still win. And like I've told folks before, we're on the prefaces of a zero civilization going into a one civilization. And the Japanese scientist, I can't pronounce his name, Mr. Kako, I think his last name is, Dr. Nikako or something like that. He talked about this in one of his books where you tend to have these types of chaotic situations in the advancement of going into a new civilization, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things, right? And you can look that up and do the discography on his information that he's been putting out there. But we're transforming. And in the transform, we need to figure out different ways for people to live, to shelter, to feed folks, and different new industries people can be a part of, being that we have so much technology. We're literally about to have robots walking around, right? The AI is doing amazing things, right? That we couldn't have imagined, you know, 10 years previous or 20 years previous. We couldn't have imagined the advances that we've accomplished technologically, you know. And so this is just a solution. I'm not saying that people would agree with my solution, but what I'm saying is it's a solution that I don't think nobody's offering or presenting. And you know, it's really what I'm noticing about a lot of our leaders in the United States. It's such about power instead about the people. It's all about power, the tyranny of one person and their mindset of thinking of doing things, versus about what's the betterment of people in the United States. How do we facilitate the betterment, right? The health, the welfare of folks. How do we increase that and not decrease it, right? This is the abundant part I'm talking about here. Like, there's a lot of abundance, and sometimes we just can't see it, right? Sometimes you just can't see all the abundance that is out there, right? And that can be utilized, right? But we're not thinking in 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7th dimension, or the 3Ds, you know, the Ds, you know. We're not thinking in that manner. And Elon Musk talked about this before. Like, there's planes that we can utilize that we're not utilizing, right? For example, Elon talked about how to get rid of LA traffic and building a lot of underground highway tunnels, right, to eliminate a lot of the traffic, you know, and that's a possibly a great idea. I don't know how it would work out. I don't know what kind of models, scientific models have been created to prove that that thought or that solution would benefit, right? But it's a solution nevertheless, and at least somebody is thinking of solutions, not consistently focused on the problem and putting, see, what we got to stop doing, not only in the United States but in the world, what we got to stop doing is we got to stop bandaging things. You know, when there's an open wound, you know, you use gauze or you use bandages to, you know, temporarily solve a solution for an open wound, but eventually, as a physician looks at the open wound, he might prescribe surgery, he might prescribe stitches, you know, whatever, to actually solve to give a solution to the issue at hand, which would be the wound, right? And so what we got to do is we got to say to ourselves, how do we perceive a solution that would be beneficial, not only to a people, but also to a nation, right? We want to be beneficial to the migrants that come over here, but we also want to benefit our own nation, right? We don't want to alienate our own citizens, right? But we also want to have sympathy and compassion, being that we let these people over here in the last administration, right? And you know, in a way, the migrants do have a reason to, the immigrants, they do have a reason to be angry. We let them over here, we funded them, and all of a sudden, just because we have new leadership, but even though the majority of United States citizens did want Trump to remove all these new people that came over the border, that is true. Um, but it is, in a way, discrimination, right? We're teeter-tottering. We're teeter-tottering on that. Now, understand, citizens of America, that we did have a lot of people come over the border that didn't have good intentions, that might be low-key insurgents working for other countries, right, to gain information or to situate themselves in America just in case, you know, something crazy happens, right, and they get activated, right? I'm going into conspiracy theory stuff here, but I'm going to stop right now. I'm just saying, a lot of people came over here not only from the Latin Americas, but from other countries, um, hiding themselves amongst the Latin Americans that are actually, a lot of them are good people that just are trying to make a better way, right? They're trying to make a better way because their countries, again, they have bad leadership, right? And when you have good leadership, you think about the people in your nation and how to benefit them, right? When you're a good leader, you think you understand that the pyramid is upside down, not upside up, meaning that the pyramid is not going up with a point at the top and the leader is not at the top. You have to flip the pyramid down, right? It should be a flat base at the top, and the pyramid or the leader who's at the point should be supporting up, to the team that has been assembled to accomplish whatever the goal is to be accomplished. So, you know, this is my solution for the folks out there in LA, right? This is my solution for the folks in all the major cities that the migrants had gotten sent to: New York, Chicago, Texas, you know, a lot of these places that are already oversaturated with people, and it just puts us at odds with each other, right? Because we're all trying to fight over the same things. A piece of the American pie, right? A piece of the American dream, right? Which hopefully people are waking up to see that this is just a facade. The American dream, the American pie, it's just a facade. It's like the entertainment industry. It's not real, right? It's what did Matthew McConaughey say? I forgot, in the movie he said something, and you know, it's just a facade, right? These things are not real. What's real are people. What's real is that we all have to eat every day. We all have to find shelter. We all have to bathe, right? We all have basic needs as human beings. right? So this is a solution, right? Let's relocate folks, right? And if those folks don't want to relocate, I mean, where's the lieutenant, lieutenant? Where's other folks who have other solutions for those people who don't want to relocate? But I think that a lot of people would relocate because again, it's about a better quality of life, right? It's about being in America where Americans are allowed to say what they want to say, to bear arms. We have the Bill of Rights. We have rights as citizens, and our country is really well off. It went through a lot. But what I would say to the migrants and people from other countries that are fighting these battles, whether it be in Palestine or in LA, you know, um, when you think of Black Americans, when you think of uh, descendants of slavery, remember that when you keep in mind of the history of those folks and you have an understanding of why Black Americans are the way they are and all the things that they've accomplished on Black Americans own, right? A lot of Black Americans did this as a unit across the United States. We united, we had leaders, we had Black Panther parties, we had civil rights movements. We fought Jim Crow, we battled through slavery, even after slavery. Um, when you think about those folks, make sure that you pay homage, right? And when I mean by saying pay homage is that you have an understanding of the history, you have an understanding of all the things that were accomplished by Black Americans, right? And you give a respect, right? And you give a reverence, right? And when you do that, then you'll possibly see Black Americans assist you in combating um, unfair law sets, unfair solutions, right? But right now, at this moment, Black Americans have taken a stand across the United States. We're going to mind our own business. You know what I mean? We're going to mind our own business. And I've been hearing the notion, and this has been a thing going on all the social media platforms that Black Americans are next. Like ICE is going to start deporting Black Americans, and what's happening to the Latin Americans. What's happening to people in Palestine is going to happen to Black Americans. And look, Black Americans not going to let that happen again, right? Just like Jewish people never going to let a Holocaust happen again. Black Americans, we not going back into slavery. We're not going back into oppression. It's not happening, right? And these are the things that are going to eventually lead into what has been predicted by many, civil war, right? Because we're not going to let certain things happen again. So I wanted to quickly say that, but again, in order to prevent all that nonsense, right, let's just utilize a solution, right? And I think that the solution that I'm presenting is a good solution. I'm not hearing anybody on the news or different social media platforms utilize or speak on this type of solution, right? I'm not hearing people saying to themselves, hey, let's relocate these people. Let's use a win-win situation where we can utilize their help and also give them a pathway to naturalization and citizenship, right? Eventually, down the line in the future, I'm just being a futurist. I see the borders being opened up on both sides, not only on the southern border, but the northern border, right? Eventually, we all need to just become one continent, right? And share the same values, share the same principles and statutes that America and Canada have, and Mexico shares some of those things, I believe. But we all want the same thing. So let's just sit at the same table and come up with solutions. Now, these solutions are not going to be perfect, and they're not going to always, you come up with things. It doesn't always pan out the way you think it's going to pan out, right? And I get that. But as long as we keep working towards it, we'll get there. You know what I mean? And that's the goal, right? To keep working towards things that will get us there eventually. And I think this is a benefit, right? This solution, right? Because not necessarily the more people, the merrier, but, you know, 2 heads is better than 1, and 3 is better than 2, and 4 is better than 3, et cetera, right? So if we come together and unite, right? And I know that this is a whole we are the world thing, right? Oh, he wants us to come together and, you know, unite. Well, I'm just saying, if we all work together and if we can just put our differences to the side and our biases to the side, let the comedians stay in that realm of let the comedians stay in the realm of making fun of this and that and stuff, and we laugh at it because it's true, right? Like with the Chappelle, you know, David Chappelle, you know, let them do that, right? But let us come together and say to ourselves, you know what, we could utilize your help, folks from Latin America. You know, Latin America, you know, step up to Black Americans and be like, you know, we understand your history. We understand and revere the things that you've done. We could use some help strategically. You know, would you mind giving us some pointers strategically on how we maneuver through these things? You guys have been through a lot, right? So, you know, these are the things I'm talking about. And when it comes to white America and any other folks in America, right? Understand this, like, a lot of the international community is here because they want better lives, right? No matter where they're coming from. So let's come together and figure out how we can reshape America for its future, right? For the future generations, right? Because we don't want to, you know, my generation is the generation that is about to take over and take the realm and take the guard. But my child and the children that are in my child's generation, right? We don't want to leave them without, right? We don't want to leave them without infrastructure. We don't want to leave them without a way of continuing on, right? Right now, everybody's been dumbed down by the social medias, and everybody's been dumbed down by just the way that the culture is, right? But we want to create something that's going to give them a good foundation to keep propelling forward, right? Because right now, it's not looking good for the future generations, right? It's not looking promising, right? But that's just me expanding. I really wanted to put this solution out here, and, you know, because like I said, all the great leaders, all the people that I've apprenticed under, that, you know, whether you be super wealthy or just a business owner or whatever, those who know me know that I've apprenticed under, you come with solutions. You know, you don't go to the captain and as a lieutenant or as a sergeant, right? You don't go to the captain and be like, I got an issue, right? So you want me to create all the solutions for you? You know, eventually, as a sergeant, you're going to move up to the next level. As a lieutenant, you're going to move up to the next level. As a captain, you move up to the next level. So that means that you need to what? Show initiative that you're ready for leadership, which means that what? Come with solutions. Come ready to work without me having to tell you to work. You know what I mean? And I just think that this would be a good solution. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, and I'm not saying that everybody in the Latin community that are migrants are going to go with, like, you know, moving to North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, you know, all the Nebraska, you know, New Mexico. They might want to live in New Mexico. But we got to create solutions, man, and we got to utilize folks. You know, we got to have the wisdom, as I've said many of times. We got to have, and this is what the Bible teaches us, to be like the ant and the bee. Take the wisdom from them. It's numerous amounts of ants, numerous amounts of bees, but they seem to work, they are working together as one unit, right? And I'm not saying we need to become a hive mind, right? Where we're just robotic and drones and everything. Now, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that we need to work together as the ant and the bee to become stronger, right? Look at all the millions of ants and bees that live in the small in the colonies that they have, right? I think that's what they're called. Look at that. You know what I mean? So when you have so many people, excuse me, when you have so many insects living in a colony, you know, they work together, right, to facilitate the better good of the colony, right? And so that's what we could be doing, working together to facilitate the better good of everybody in our nation. And I think it starts by just this solution right here. Okay, you don't want to leave America, fine. We're going to put you here and here and here. Why? Well, we need folks there, and we need to build infrastructure there, and we need to build cities there. And it creates new markets as well, right? It creates new opportunity as well. But, you know, I don't know what famous person out there or what politician might be listening to me over the airwaves, but, you know, feel free to utilize this solution for yourself and to implement it how you may implement it. I think it's a great solution, and you know, it benefits, and it also, it doesn't alienate. It shows people that they're wanted. See, we don't understand, you know, people say that you should be able to handle rejection. And yes, that's true. But I've been actually researching rejection and the what it does to the psyche. And it does some terrible things to the psychological mind, right? Starting from infants, right? All the way up to adults. We don't want to alienate or reject people, you know, but we want to repurpose, right? We want to repurpose and give purpose, right? And again, I just think that this is a solution that could be utilized. Just rehouse them. They're not going to leave America. You're still going to be on your way to citizenship. We're going to give you a way to nationalize, but we got to have you follow a structure on how we do that, right? We got to have a structure, right, on how we do that. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who is joined this live. I want to take a moment to thank everybody who likes and subscribes. I appreciate that. You know, Mark, I respect your opinion about it. I'm just starting to look at the chat. I just wanted to get my thought out before, you know, my mindset out. So thank you for being patient with me. I cannot ditch the green screen because I don't really have that best lighting right now anyways, but thank you, Mickey, man. I will do better about lighting, and I will do better about positioning myself so you can see better quality in my footage. I do appreciate your criticism. Thank you. You know, to Mark, back to Mark, I don't agree with your sentiments, but I understand your sentiments. You know, I'm not racist against Mexicans. I don't have a bias against them or anybody in Latin America. I understand what they've gone through. I understand their history because I've studied their history. And, you know, I just think that we could repurpose and reutilize folks to build our country to be better. And that doesn't mean making them slaves. It just means that, you know, we want to make it beneficial on both ends, if that makes sense. But I respect your opinion, Mark. You're welcome to your opinion. That's your opinion, you know, and I don't think a lot of the people that are in the live agree with your opinion, but, you know, I respect it. I understand. We live in America where you're allowed to have an opinion. It's part of the reason why people want to be here. Oh, no. I don't do any pegging or get pegged. No. Matter of fact, hold on. We got to get him out of here. Saying craziness like that, we got to get you out of here, buddy. Let's go, white people. I mean, you know, I wouldn't say let's go, white people, but, you know, I think let's go, all people. Mark, I agree with you on some of your stuff that you said. You know, it is going to be very difficult for it to happen. Um, but I think that as a leader, sometimes you just got to take initiative and you just got to do things, right? And that's how you solve things, right? Um, I just want to reintegrate. I'm definitely not gay. I don't peg or get pegged. I'm definitely only interested in women. Um, Specifically, you know, I have a type, you know, so I just want to put that out there again because I see people in the chat are just, sometimes you guys in the chat, y'all just kind of go left. That's why I tend not to pay attention to the chat too much because sometimes y'all just go left. Let's see what King Jamie the Mad says. Shout out to King James the Mad for his comment. You know, go back to the chat, family, and see what he said. The bikers are out tonight on a Monday. They out here on a Tuesday. They out here. Cecily Felis says the solution is come here correct. Do it the legal way. You can't walk in to any other country and just stay. You get arrested and deported. You don't just sneak in and stay. I mean, that's absolutely correct. But you got to remember, and I think this is a female, Miss Felice, you got to remember that we let them over here, right? Like we had the issue, but the Biden administration literally let these folks just come over the border, right? So we did it to ourselves, right? Now we got to create a solution to fix the problem that we created, right? Our own leadership brought this on us. You know what I mean? So I respect your opinion, though. I believe Miss Felice. I just want to say I respect your opinion because your opinion is valid. But we did let them over here. Our leadership, our last administration, and that's why we didn't vote for Kamala, because Kamala, what the heck were you doing? You know, you wasn't helping creating solutions. You kind of just was, we don't know what you were doing, but from what it appeared, you were just kind of floating around, you know, just kind of floating, being vice president. Whatever. I respect you as our vice president, but you know, we could have used some help when you were in the empowered. Jacksonville Kid. I respect your opinion, Jacksonville Kid. I don't agree with it. It says it will never happen, my guy. If everyone comes together, there will be no money to be made. I disagree. I think that there will be a lot of money to be made because when you have so many people like that, and see, here's the good quality about Latin Americans. They tend to work together. Not that they don't have their own gripes and beefs amongst each other, but they tend to work together. And what we do is we get architects, right? We get our architects, our great architects, to come together to create plans, right? And see, a lot of the Latin community, they like to build, like literally construction build. And so we have them build. That's what they like to do. And I hope I don't sound racist or anything, like, you know, I'm not trying to generalize folks, but that's what they like to do. They tend to go in those building industries, right? Let them build. Let's build new places in America that haven't been built up. Like I said, there's plenty of places in America that need infrastructure, that are offering opportunities, like Oklahoma, right? They're offering, you know, these places are offering opportunities to Americans that don't want to go there because it's not popping, right? But let's give the Latin Americans that are over here an opportunity to build infrastructure so that we can get those places popping. You know what I mean? Let's build coalitions with each other within our own nation, right? That, you know, maybe the Latin Americans build a city and they contact Black Americans like, look, we need your help to get this popping. We need you to get this city popping for us. You know, we need your help. We need your influence. You know what I mean? This is what we're offering. Leaders in the black community might be like, I like what you offering, player. We like the then we create internal treaties with each other, internal treaties, internal peace agreements. We got to think about, let's go historically to how the Indians lived, right? Now the Indians are vast, right? They're a bunch of different tribes, right? They didn't always agree with each other, obviously. And they had wars amongst each other, obviously, but a lot of them figured out ways and solutions, and they created treaties and pacts amongst the different tribes and nations within a nation, right? Within the Indian nations, they created treaties and pacts not only to be nonviolent, but to build infrastructure and to build better, right? And I just think that this is a solution. But anyways, again, I wanted to say to everybody that's watching and that watched, thank you so much for joining. Even the weird people, I call you weird because anybody's trying to put things on people that are what does Tariq always say? Project. Anybody that's projecting stuff, right? Especially when it comes to sexuality. Pause that. I just got to put a big pause on that. But thank those people too, because y'all are viewing and y'all help the algorithm build my channel. So thank you. But thank you to all the people who like and subscribe, and thank you for those who listen to the things that I have to say. I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you would like. That's up to you. I'm going to try to be more consistent on the type of content I'm putting out there, which is going to be solutions and obscure things that I have to say about different topic matters. But I appreciate you subscribing. I appreciate you liking, and I appreciate you helping my channel go up in not only views, but watch time. So I'll never be like, oh, subscribe and like, you do that if you want to. Like I said, I watch plenty of people, but I'm not always subscribed to everybody. I don't always remember to like their content. So I appreciate you anyways. But anyways, just take into account what I said, marinate on it and think about it. Like and subscribe if you would like to. And, thanks for joining. Lifestyle here, child of God. And, last thing, keep God in your mindset when you think about solutions. Think about how God analyzes it. Sometimes we need to take a step back, step back. Sometimes we need to take a step up, right? Or a couple steps up so we can look down. Not that we're looking down on others, but so that we can look down like the eagles and perceive, what we couldn't perceive if we were on the same plane. Sometimes you got to go up to look down, to perceive things differently, right? In a light that you wouldn't perceive being on the same plane as a situation, right? And so sometimes we need to really sit with ourselves and say, what would the mind of God think about a situation, right? How would God handle a situation, right? But anyways, thanks for joining. Lifestyle here, child of God. Peace.